Well, the leader of Canada's federal Green Party is calling on the federal government to appoint a national task force on COVID-19. Annamie Paul met with reporters today here in Ottawa to discuss the COVID-19 response and to look ahead to the federal government's climate plan expected to begin rolling out starting next week. The Green Party leader is with me, as you can see. Annamie Paul, good to see you again. Thanks for taking time to speak with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to get to the climate discussion in a moment, but let's start with the other announcement you had to make today, which is to speak out about the need for a stronger federal response to the pandemic and the second wave of the pandemic. What is it you want to see?
I want to see a true national response to a national emergency. The pandemic clearly is something that we have not been able to get under control through a variety of regional or provincial responses. And so this is the moment for us to do what many other countries have done, which is to have all the levels of government come together so that they can speak with one unified voice and develop a coordinated response.
What's been wrong with the federal response so far?
Well, again, there's been a lot that's right. It's always important to say that we're not looking to create division where none exists. We've done a lot to protect people from the worst. But what we see now is a lot of mixed messaging. You have the federal public health officials giving one message. There's another message then that's received at the provincial level, and then another at the municipal level. It's left people confused and concerned and not sure what they should do to protect themselves and their loved ones.
Although the Minister of Health seemed to suggest today that the response is working the way that it's supposed to, that there's an overarching sort of advice coming from the federal government, but that it's really the provincial and local health officials that have a better idea of what's happening on the ground in their jurisdictions and know what rules and restrictions to impose. So federal government seems to this point to be saying things are working the way we want them to, but those decisions about particular rules and restrictions are left to the local health authorities. You don't see it that way?
I believe that we can have a national coding system that is flexible enough for us to recognize where some jurisdictions are doing better than others. But we do need a national system and national messaging. What we are doing now is not working. It's important to really underline that we are in the second wave. We haven't reached the peak of that wave yet. We're told that we could, without any changes, that we can expect another 13,000 deaths. And so we need to make sure that the message, the information and the decisions are being driven by the scientists, by the doctors. It's completely unfair, of course, to leave all of the decisions and all of the messaging up to the municipal level of government. We really need a coordinated message.
Okay, quickly on this, provinces are reluctant to take direction, especially if they don't think they need to, from the federal government. So that leads me to asking your view on whether the Prime Minister should avail himself of the Emergencies Act or emergency options that he has under the Constitution in this country to actually impose a different kind of response on provinces and municipalities. Should he go that route?
To remember that even though I'm a politician, I'm still a person in the community. I'm still a citizen. I'm still a mother and a daughter and a sister. And that applies to all of the other politicians that are making decisions. And so if they are thinking truly about the people that they care about, if they're thinking truly about the communities that they represent, there should never be any need to even be thinking about invoking the Emergencies Act. This is about making sure that people who have been elected to represent their communities are actually doing that and that they're putting them first. And if we do that, then I'm sure that we can come together as we have in other moments of great national crisis to create a solution together to create a coordinated response.
Okay, let's talk climate. The Liberals have promised a plan to get to net zero emissions by 2050. We'll start getting the details perhaps as early as next week on that. What are you watching for?
I'm looking for a lot of things because we're really starting practically from ground zero in terms of building a true climate plan. First, we need to have a target that corresponds to the science. Our target is about 50% of what it needs to be in order for Canada to meet its international obligations to reduce greenhouse gases. We also want to see Canada begin negotiations with the United States about creating a North American carbon border adjustment. We're very excited about the possibilities of that to protect our businesses and also to ensure that we encourage other countries to reduce greenhouse gases. And we want to make sure that we have consequences for people who continue to pollute. We want to make sure that there are timelines and measurable timelines between now and 2050 as well.
What kind of an impact would a carbon border have on many of those Canadian industries that are high greenhouse gas emitters right now? Energy industry, steel industry. What effect would that have on Canada's ability to trade with other countries if we have a carbon border?
Well, first, we don't want to see our industries being punished as we move towards a clean, green economy. We don't want to see what we call carbon leakage, which is, dirty goods being imported from countries that have weak environmental policies, weak climate policies. That's not fair to our industries. That's not fair to our businesses. And so that is one of the biggest things that we get out of this. We also have the chance to show true leadership on the climate through a carbon border, because if people want to trade with us, they can either improve their own standards or have us keep their money. And then I would say, Peter, the train has already left the station because President-elect Joe Biden has said that he wants to bring in a carbon tariff. And if the United States brings in a carbon tariff, we really have no option but to bring in our own. So it's much better for us to negotiate it jointly with the Americans.
What's your sense of a timetable on all of this, given that Joe Biden is certainly has a climate plan, wants to make change, but he's going to be likely dealing with a divided Congress, so he'll have his own uphill battles.
Well, he wants to be the climate president. He managed to forge a coalition behind his leadership bid around a climate agenda. And so I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to deliver on that quite quickly. And Joe Biden also knows, and I would say that the United States and the European Union also know that the best way and for them to recover from the pandemic is to have a green recovery. That's where the jobs of the future are. That's where the smart money is going. That's where the major investments are happening. And so there's not really any choice to make here. We can do what's right for the climate and also make sure that we're building a more resilient economy for ourselves by having that green recovery.
Green Party Leader Annamie Paul, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you so much, Peter.